Chapter 17. The bus was a single-decker British Leyland, circa 1958. To say that it had seen better days would not altogether be telling the whole truth, unless you considered plying a regular and turgid trade between Hounslow bus station and the Staines depot for 23 long and thankless years to be your definition of better days. Not so the bus. For it, the better days were now, because this was a liberated bus, a bus now free of its yoke. Gone were the rows of dreary seats, gone the dull green paintwork, gone the sweaty driver's bum upon its forward throne, and gone, all gone, its number. I am not a number, I am a free bus. The free bus was now a bus apart. It had been lovingly repainted in mainly a rainbow hue. It housed 2 young families, and it was driven by a lady with a perfumed posterior. It was a happy bus. It pulled up without even a squeak, although its brakes had long gone off to kingdom come. A young chap with curly black hair and a smiley face swung open its doors. "Want a lift?" he asked. "Yes, please," said Cornelius Murphy. "And your mate?" "Please also." Tuppe scampered across the road and clambered after Cornelius. "Magic bus," said the small one, taking it all in. "You're not Ken Casey by any chance?" "Bullocks," said the young chap. "Excuse me, no offence meant." "None taken. That's my name. Bullocks." "Is that Mr. Bullocks, or Bullocks something?" "It's Bullocks to everything." The young chap smiled hugely. "Shut the door and make yourselves at home." "Thanks, we will." Cornelius ducked his head. They made buses smaller in those days, and he shut the door. "Where are you heading?" "To wherever the good times are." "That's where we'd like to go," said Tuppe. "Then you're in good company." "Yes." Cornelius gave the interior of the bus a thoughtful sensory scan. Bright-eyed children grinned at him from a hammock strung acrossways between the windows. A guitar was being played with skill, and a girl was singing, and delicious smells wafted from the cooking area. It was all rather blissful. "Very good company indeed," said Cornelius Murphy. The lady at the wheel put the happy bus into gear, and it rolled onwards. "Want some eats?" asked Bullocks. Tuppe looked at Cornelius, and Cornelius looked at Tuppe. "Yes, please," he said. They dined on pulses and brown rice and fresh vegetables and strawberries and cream. "Okay?" Bullocks asked. "Not half." Tuppe loosened a button on his dungarees. "Not half. Thank you very much. You guys employed?" "Ah, now." Cornelius took off his cap and stroked his bandages. "We were, sort of, but it didn't work out." "What happened to your head?" "We ran into a spot of trouble," Tuppe explained. "Cornelius got some of his hair pulled out. Wasn't very nice." Bullocks nodded. "Cornelius? That's your name, then?" "Oh, I'm sorry," said the tall boy. "We haven't introduced ourselves. I'm Cornelius Murphy, and this is Tuppe." "Tuppe?" asked Bullocks. "It's short for Tupperware. Not a lot of people know that." "It comes as a revelation to me," said Cornelius. "I was going to save it for some special moment, but sod it." "Bullocks to it," said their host. "Absolutely." "And what about you?" Cornelius asked. "I guess that's your lady at the wheel, and the 2 marvellous kids in the hammock are yours. And then there's the other family, although the adults aren't sleeping together at the moment. Something to do with him getting stoned and falling into a slurry pit, I shouldn't wonder." Bullocks viewed Cornelius with alarm. "Ow! His nose!" Tuppe tapped the small one of his own. "He has a gift. He can smell who's who belongs to who, stuff like that." "Can you smell trouble?" Bullocks asked. "Oh, yes, I can smell that all right." "Smell it now." The tall boy sniffed. "Nah, but I can smell the dope in your top left pocket, though. Lebanese scarlet. Any chance of an after-dinner spliff?" Bullocks collapsed into a pile of gaily coloured cushions and laughed like the drain of no legend. The happy bus rolled onward. Spliffs were shared, and Bullocks made all the introductions. There was his wife, Louise, flaxen hair, pre-Raphaelite features, coffee lace and ankle bracelets. Born, big born, slurry pit survivor, tattooed in moments of madness and built like a brick shithouse. His untattooed wife, Candy, brown-iced drowning, a degree in astrophysics and the kindest hands in Christendom. And then there were the children, 5 in all. They seemed like 10 and laughed a lot. Everybody laughed a lot. Cornelius sat amongst the cushions. "How did you get all this together?" he asked Bollocks. The smiley fellow smiled. "Necessity," he said. "Which, like Frank Zappa, is the mother of all invention. No jobs, no hope, and the bus all rusting away in a scrapyard. We found each other, and the bus found us. And that's how it is now. The bus and us." "How do you get by?" "There's a dough check, and diesel is cheaper than rent. Where are you guys from?" "We're from Brentford," said Cornelius. "Brentford?" Bollocks fell into laughter once more. "You have to be kidding." "I wouldn't lie about a thing like that. What's so funny about Brentford anyway?" "Nothing's funny about it, but that's where we're heading, to Brentford." Prince Charles sat in his private office at Buckingham Palace. The mid-afternoon sun shone in at his window, and the drone of the London traffic went on and on and on. But the prince didn't hear it, because the prince was dreaming about trains. He spent most of his time nowadays dreaming about trains. Not that he didn't have other things to do. There was never any shortage of mail to be opened, read through and answered. And being, as the press now called him, the People's Prince, he did it all himself. And he did have a very great deal of this mail piled up on his desk before him right now. But he didn't feel in the mood to answer it. Most of the envelopes smelt strongly of perfume and contained, as ever, offers of marriage. Prince Charles sighed. In his mind's eye he saw the Duchy of Cornwall, not as it was, but how it could be, would be when he became king. Translated into a great steam network with a full-size reproduction of the 1920s marshalling yards of Crewe, superimposed across 500 acres of set-aside he'd personally set aside for the purpose, and he saw himself, all spruced up in a nutty black uniform, striped waistcoat and cap, checking his regulation GWR issue pocket watch up on high in the signal box, skillfully manipulating the levers as the mighty King-class locos rolled onto the turntables, took on water and blew their whistles. The prince had long ago realised that the only way forward was backwards. If mankind was to survive, it must throw off the shackles of technology and return to traditional values. A fair day's work for a fair day's pay, a proper class system, and steam trains that ran on time, and a steam train named after himself, the good King Charles. He knew exactly the kind he wanted too. The American 1940s big boy. Biggest steam locomotives the world had ever seen, the big boys. 8 front driving wheels fixed, another 8 swiveled front and rear bogies, 4-8-8-4 wheel arrangement. They ate up 23 tons of coal every hour. Wonderful. He could really be the People's Prince in one of those. They could pull over 70 coaches. He could fit out the carriages, load up his art collection and the best of his furniture, get the phone laid on, television, guest sleeping cars, sell up all his palaces and country piles to house the homeless, then travel the country, royalty on the rails, the monarchy on the move. Toot, 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 went the prince. Woo, woo, woo. Ring, ring, ring went his telephone. Ring, ring, ring. The People's Prince picked up the receiver. One speaking, said he. Yo, Babylon, came the hearty Rastafarian tones of his new equerry, former Brentford used car dealer, Leo Felix. How's it hanging? Yo, bro, answered the prince. How is it hanging yourself? Like one of your granny's bloodstock, blood clot. There's a chick here. Say she come about the job as a secret Harry or something. You say you're doing all the interviewing yourself. Shall I send her in? Yes, if you would be so kind. Prince Charles replaced the telephone, straightened his tie and his double-breaster, and stroked a few hairs over his bald spot. A knocking came at his chamber door, and the prince rose slightly and said, Come. Polly Gotting opened the door and entered the office. Her long golden hair was tied back in a severe bun. She wore a white linen blouse, a calf-length skirt of appropriately royal blue, dark stockings, and a pair of sensible shoes she'd borrowed from her mum. "Should I curtsy?" she asked. No, I..." Prince Charles gazed upon Polly Gotting. She was very possibly the most beautiful girl he'd ever seen in his life, and he'd seen some. The sunlight played upon her hair and formed a glittering corona all around and about. She veritably radiated. "Would you like some tea?" asked the heir to the throne. "Do you want me to put the kettle on?" Oh, no, of course not. Please sit down, please. He indicated a chair, and Polly sat down upon it. The prince lifted the telephone to order tea, but then thought better of it. The last time Leo had made him tea, the prince found he couldn't walk straight after the second cup. Perhaps later. Charles folded his fingers before him on the desk and smiled at the stunning 17-year-old. He suddenly felt a bit lost for something to say, which was not really like him, as a rule. Polly smiled back. She was fascinated. This man was a piece of living history, and she was sitting all alone in a room with him, sharing moments of his time, somehow possessing a fraction of history, just for a few short minutes, but really, forever. It was a curious sensation, and she felt suddenly stuck for words herself, which was not really like her, as a rule. Do you like steam trains?" Prince Charles asked. Polly considered the question and the eager look on the prince's face. "Yes," she said, "very much indeed. Only this morning I was talking to a friend about the Eureka LNER Passenger Express. Classic 462 wheel arrangement, 4-wheel bogie in front, 6 couple driving wheels and a pair of trailing wheels. Perhaps you know of it." I do," said the prince. "I mean, one does. Oh yes." Polly smiled some more. Prince Charles took out his fountain pen. "One must take up references," he said in a manner which he hoped would imply an interest in such things. "Who have you been with?" "Been with?" Polly asked. "Worked for," said the prince. "The police force. I was made redundant." "Oh dear," said the prince. "Have they closed down the police force?" "Just my bit of it. If you want to take up a reference, you must speak to Inspector Hovis at Scotland Yard." "Sherringford Hovis?" Prince Charles put his fountain pen back in his pocket. "Do you know him, then?" "One should say so. He sorted out a spot of bother concerning one of the brothers, a homeopathist named Chunky and a doormobile named Desire. Sound chap." "He's been made redundant also." "That's a pity. He was up for a knighthood. Have to cancel that if he's been given the old heave-ho." "Serves the nasty bastard right," thought Polly. "That's a shame," she said. "He was a fine policeman." Yes," agreed the prince. He was. Can you start at once?" "You haven't told me what you want me to do yet." Prince Charles considered the beauty sitting before him. "I want you to bear my children and share my throne," he thought. "I want you to be my personal assistant," he said. "And would this involve tea making?" No, not really." "Then I would be pleased to accept, sir." Back on the magic bus, and some little while earlier, Cornelius groaned dismally. "Why are you heading for Brentford?" Tuppe asked Bollocks. "We're going to the festival." Tuppe scratched his head. "There isn't any festival in Brentford. There was a bit of a do the night before last. We were there." "Good, was it?" "Not good. That's where Cornelius got his hair. You know." "This is a rock music festival." Bollocks mined the heavy guitar. "Starts on Friday night. There's this big hill. You must know it." Star Hill. Cornelius groaned anew. "It's a sacred site, but not the one the cops know about. Gandhi's Hairdryer are going to play up there. A freebie for the travellers." A freebie for the travellers? Tuppe whistled. Having grown up amongst fairground folk and lived his short life in a caravan, which, since his daddy's retirement, was hauled from the common land at the foot of Star Hill at least once a month at the behest of the Star Hill Preservation Society, a group of well-to-do worthies whose properties backed onto the golf course, the small fellow felt a certain warm glow inside at the prospect of a wagon train of travellers turning up on their doorsteps for a rock festival. Oh, that would go down a real treat. "How many of you blokes will be going to this gig, then?" he asked. "Oh, I think," said Bollocks. Tuppe rubbed his hands together in glee. "Should be a gig to remember," said he. Anna Gotting was playing guitar at Min's Music Mine. Mickey was on the telephone talking excitedly. The matter of Anna leaving the shop unattended the previous afternoon had, by mutual consent, been forgotten, although Anna could hardly forget Cornelius Murphy and all that she had been through with him, but she intended to try. Mickey put down the phone. "That was Cardinal Cox," he said brightly. "Of Sonic Energy Authority? They're really good." "That's him. The authority are paying support to Gandhi's Hairdryer on the UK leg of their world tour." "Nice one." "And then some. The authority's bus just blew up on the M25. The Cardinal wants to hire all my old WEM vendettas and amps for the gig on Friday." "Best get cash up front then. You know what they're like." "I'm a professional," said Mickey Minns, hoisting up his jeans and tucking in his stomach. "How'd you like to be a roadie at the gig?" "What, with the hairdryer? Not half. When is it? Where?" "They're playing a freebie on Star Hill Friday night. Should be a gig to remember." And Mickey was certainly right about that too. It would be a gig that everyone would long remember. And then some.